Well, I watched Tron Ares, and I left the movie theater wondering, why are we still making Tron movies? Why? Welcome back, everybody. I have finally watched Tron Ares. It took me a little bit longer than it normally does to get to some movies because it's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada, so I've been busy doing Thanksgiving things with family, while other people have been off doing New York Comic Con and watching Tron Ares. But I finally got there. So I watched it today, and I have a lot of thoughts on this movie, and I will say there are some things with this that really surprised me. So we're going to talk about all of Tron leading up to this moment, as well as this film itself, and analyze a little bit where I think it went right and a little bit where I think it went wrong, could have been better, as we get into this review. But before we do that, I would just like to say, spoiler warning, in effect, we are going to be talking about the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, you should maybe see it, unless you would like me to spoil it for you. Although really, is that what we really come for Tron? Do we come for the story? We're going to examine that in a moment. When it comes to Tron Ares, this is a film that is playing on kind of what we've been doing with the last couple Trons. So normally, Tron is a movie about people that go into a computer and realize that there's kind of a whole world in the computer. There are programs which are also like people that work in the computer. There's a whole system. There's a whole city. In this case, with Tron Ares, we're actually kind of flipping the script a little bit, and it's about those programs, those beings from inside the computer coming out, coming to our world, and how do they get to stay here? Because we have a problem where anytime they come into our world, they can only be here for 29 minutes before they expire. They go through their light cycle, they regen back in the computer. In order for us to figure out how to do that, we are on a hunt between these two companies who are looking for the permanence code, which would allow them to take these beings from the computer and make them permanent in real life. Also, building things that come out of the computer, building lines of code that you could make permanent. And you can build pretty much anything. You can build tanks, you can build trees, you can do it all. Really what it's about is Jared Leto's character, Ares, who himself is a security program, coming into our world and kind of figuring out who he is, what he wants in life. And that's mostly what it's about. There are some other characters here, and there are some themes, some pretty big themes, in regards to computer sentience, AI, that we talk about in this movie. But for the most part, I would say there's a lot of stuff that's kept pretty surface level. I think it's pretty easy for people to get into. So if you are a person that has watched Tron before, or you haven't watched Tron before, and you're maybe watching this review to kind of figure out, like, can I go see this movie if I'm not super into Tron? I would say the answer is yes, you can. You could go see this movie, even if you're not super familiar with the first two films, either the 80s film or the 2010 Tron Legacy. I think that it does a good job of filling in the gaps for people so that they kind of know what's happening. The beginning of the film is a little bit of exposition. It kind of flies us through these news reports that we see like in a computer, and we get an update on what's been going on in the world and setting the scene for what our conflict will be in this movie. And I think if you have seen Tron before, it's interesting because the only thing I heard from reviews before I went to see this movie, I was avoiding the reviews because I didn't want anything to be spoiled, and I also just didn't want anyone to get in my head and make me see the film in a different way. So I try to kind of distance myself from reviews before I go to see something. But I did hear people were saying that this movie, it seems like they totally forgot, or they want us to forget, that the previous Tron movies happened. Having seen this movie, I don't know what people are talking about in regards to that. There are tons of references to the previous movies, and in fact, even the story is kind of a continuation. Like, it's doing its own thing, but Dillinger, the company, is there. They reference the original Dillinger from the first Tron. You know, there's light cycles, there's the discs that they use. All of that stuff is there from the original movies. And there are even just references to the way that the world works in Tron. Like, we have the lasers, which can bring you into the program and also upload stuff out of the program into our world. So they're adding a little bit to the world building, however, never in a way that feels too science-y, because as soon as you start to think too much about some of these things, I feel like there are some plot holes, and I do think that when it comes to the universe, they've given us some cool stuff, but ultimately, I just wish there was more of it. We're going to talk a little bit more about the areas of this film that I felt were a bit disappointing, I guess, to me. But before we get into that, let me just tell you about the things that I really loved, because aside from the fact that I don't know why people said that this movie wants us to forget about previous Tron when it references it so much, aside from all of that, there is a lot to love about this movie. And I think whether you are a fan of Tron or whether you're new to Tron, I think there's a lot for you to appreciate with it. I think visually it is a stunning film. It's really, really pretty. And the entire, first, I would say at least 30 minutes are a visual feast in terms of just some of the shots, and especially when we go into, the servers and we go into the world, going into where the programs are. I think all of that stuff looks so freaking cool. Even when it comes to our world and we have the light bikes and we have all the chase scenes and stuff that are happening in our world, I think it looks really cool. The fight scenes in general are just visual feasts for the eyes. The soundtrack for this movie by Nine Inch Nails is, I'll be listening to it constantly, especially when I'm on the move. It just is so kinetic, I think. There is a certain surge of energy that it gives you when you're watching these scenes, and it really creates a sense of momentum behind some of the scenes. I think if you didn't have this soundtrack, this movie would not nearly be as good. It really fuels it. And I think that is an important thing with Tron. The soundtrack has become an iconic part of the franchise. I think especially with Tron Legacy, having Daft Punk do that soundtrack, it was huge. That soundtrack is still one of the best soundtracks, I think, ever. And so this obviously had big shoes to fill when it came to the music. And I think they did a great job choosing Nine Inch Nails for the soundtrack. They just completely crushed it. And it will live rent-free in my brain happily for the next little while, I assume, at least. I think it's going to be a soundtrack I'll just return to regularly, which is a great testament to the film. I think the acting is also pretty good in this movie. Now, I know you might be wondering to yourself, Jared Leto, I wonder why they went with Jared Leto, especially considering, some of the recent things that we've learned, but of course, they had already kind of picked him at the time that people were talking about some of the personal stuff with Jared Leto. But even before that, Jared Leto has had some negative connotations attached to him from just how he behaves on set, his approach to method, and various different things that you could bring up. Now, I personally, when it comes to Jared Leto, as an actor, I think that he is a good actor. I know that not everybody agrees with that, but I would say that if you look at the credits when this movie opens, you'll also understand why Jared Leto is in this movie. He is an executive producer on the film. He's one of our producers. So clearly, Jared Leto likes Tron. He wanted to do another Tron movie. And if you've heard him in any interviews, it seems to be something that he really does love Tron and wanted to do that. So I assume part of him being a producer is probably that he wanted to be in the movie and be the title character. And I do think that he does a good job. I see a lot of people talking about how awful he is and how awful this movie is as a result, now that I've seen it, and I'm looking at reviews now that I've finally seen the movie. And I disagree with that. But everyone's going to have their own opinion on his abilities as an actor. And acting is not just, is it good or is it bad? It is an art form. And so I think people are entitled to their different opinions. But for me, I felt that he fit the role of Ares quite well. I think there is a sense of a kind of roboticness that you start out with Ares, and because it's all about his journey into realizing what he really wants and questioning his directives, questioning why he does what he does. There is a fascinating journey that character goes on where they're just realizing so many things about themselves and the world and what they really want to be doing and what is the purpose of their existence, that I think is relatable across the board. I also feel that it's interesting with Tron Ares where there is no Tron. Obviously, Tron is in the first film. And, the second film, we even get a little bit of Tron. But in this film, no Tron at all. And yet the title is Tron Ares. And the way that I see that is that, well, we have no Tron. Ares is maybe kind of a Tron-like figure. Instead of being a program that is fighting for the users, though, Ares seems to be a program that kind of fights for the programs at times. There's not as much of that as I think there could have been. I think there may have been some other storylines that were in here that got cut for time. I also feel like Eve has this whole relationship with her sister, Tess, who passes away, and then she's clearly trying to finish her work. And there seems to even be an implication there that what if she could bring, Tess back with AI, but then we never really do anything with that. I think the weirdest part about this movie is that it is so AI focused. And I think it makes sense for the story of Tron to go that way, and just considering the world we're in today, it is a fascinating, sci-fi concept to explore, because it is something we're seeing in real time. AI taking over the world, and what would that look like, and what are all the various uses, and what are the pros, and what are the cons. But having it be that we are following along with an AI program, while there are things you can connect with, I think, as a human, there is an element of humanity that I think is just missing from this film in general. And part of it also comes from the fact that I never felt that anything was being done for the purpose of really reaching out and touching the audience at any point. There weren't any themes here that I felt the director had anything like really, really big to say. And I mean, we do have a director on this project who is not necessarily, I haven't necessarily seen anything from them that has been overly filled with artistic vision. The director is Joachim Roning, and I hope I'm saying that right, who's the director of Maleficent, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Did do a couple episodes of Marco Polo, which actually I did like that series in general. But yeah, not really someone who I'm super familiar with in terms of seeing anything that's really spoken to me artistically. However, that doesn't mean that there's nothing there, but just based on what I have seen. And I feel like with this film, it falls in line from what I've seen from the resume previously, which is just that this is a very nice film. Visually, it's really beautiful. I think it's well executed. I think the acting is well done. The visual effects were pretty well done in this movie. It's cool. It's got a cool concept. It's got a decent script. The script is good. I wouldn't say the script is bad, but it doesn't have anything at its core that's really driving it. There's nothing deep inside the soul of this film that it needs to get out. It doesn't really feel as much that it has a soul, I guess. It just feels like it's a fun, entertaining film, and that's about it. And granted, with Tron, I don't really know if we need it to go much deeper than that, because I will say, with the previous Tron movies, I think that the visuals are a huge element, sound is an element, and a cool kind of sci-fi concept. And this ticks all those boxes. So I think in terms of a Tron movie, it really does everything that it needs to do. I think it's just, there is potential with Tron for us to do something more, for us to really get to explore some cool stuff on a philosophical level and say something real. And I think especially if you want to make the focus of your film something around AI, like, this is a time period where you could say something real and really connect with people on that issue. I don't mind the fact that the main character is a program and that they are AI. I think that has a lot of potential to connect with people. However, just the way that it's framed, we never really get too deep into the philosophical ramifications of what's happening in this story. They just decided to go a different way with it, and I think they wanted to keep it surface level because maybe they were just worried about saying something that would, like, I don't know, upset people or offend people. That's what prevents it for me from being like a really good movie. It's kind of just good where it is. I think it's fun and I think it's enjoyable. I think the fights could have been a bit more dynamic at moments. I like the chase scenes a lot, and I like that the chase scenes feel really grounded. But I think the coolest things about the fights is honestly the tech that they're using in the fights, like the light wand and, you know, seeing the light bikes, obviously, the discs that they use. All of that stuff is cool to see it utilized, but we never really do anything that feels as exciting or interesting as we could with some of these fight sequences. So overall, I think Tron Ares is good. If you want to know if I think you should watch it, I would say the answer is yes. Do you need to see it in theaters? I feel like for the sound, it would be pretty cool to see it in like Ultra AVX. I didn't do that, and I kind of regret it because the audio in this is, the sound is just so good. The music is so good. The sound effects are good. Like, it's just got really good sound. However, it depends on how much you're into Tron, I think. If you really like Tron, I think you're going to have a fun time with this one. If you think that cool visuals are exciting, yeah. Otherwise, you could probably wait for it to come on to streaming. And it's interesting to me that Disney has done this film because a lot of people are pointing to various factors as to why it's not doing well. Like, are people boycotting Jared Leto? What's happening with that? I personally think that this is going about as expected for a Tron movie. I mean, the first Tron did not do well, and it gained a cult following. The second Tron did not do well, and it gained more of a cult following. And this one is not doing well. So I guess the question is, will it gain a cult following? Will people kind of come to it later and appreciate it? Or will it just kind of fizzle out and everyone will forget about it? I think it has some staying power. I think that people will get around to watching it and appreciate it, but I guess we shall have to see. The story is just kind of all right, so it depends on what you're looking for in your film. Overall, I'd give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't usually give halves, but this was good for me, and it's a little bit above good. Like, I can really see some potential in it, and it's really got a great cast. I wish it was just giving me a little bit more, but it is what it is. That's what we got. So I'll leave it at 3.5 for now. Let me know your thoughts on Tron down in the comments below. Were you a fan before? Are you a fan now? Let me know where you're at with this. I want to hear about it. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, friends, stay nerdy. Bye! And if you like when I talk about movies, you should check this out. Seriously though, click it.